in federal and state criminal cases, white-collar matters, and internal investigations. Info available at cwwhitelaw.com.
Crews trying to clean up a stall or wreck in the HOV, the East Tex Freeway 69. Hopper. Sunshine, few clouds, 60 for the high. Winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight's low in the mid to upper 40s. 60 for tomorrow, Wednesday. We're going to be in the upper 60s, back down to the mid-50s for Thursday. We're sitting at 51 on the beach in Galveston, 46 here. The University of Houston, nice morning, humidity 58%. Listen anywhere. We're streaming live online, of course, on YouTube as well. You can go to HoustonPublicMedia.org. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 9 o'clock.
Salman Rushdie's in Houston tonight to read from his latest novel. I'm Craig Cohen. The famed author and essayist is no stranger to the Houston area, as he explains today on Houston Matters.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, we begin a week-long series exploring how certain issues will play out in the Houston area this year, beginning today with immigration. Then we welcome your gardening questions for Meg Tapp from the Garden Club of Houston. Send them now to talk@houstonmatters.org. Plus, we break down the players, the coaches, the schemes, and the weather, and consider how it all might affect tonight's AFC wildcard game between the Texans and the Steelers in Pittsburgh. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Stocks opened lower this morning after news that the Justice Department has opened a criminal probe of the Federal Reserve. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped nearly 180 points in early trading.
The Federal Reserve says it received grand jury subpoenas late last week about the costly renovation of the central bank's headquarters building in Washington and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's testimony about that project before a Senate committee. In an unusually combative video statement, however, Powell says those are mere pretext. He says the threat of criminal charges is part of the administration's broader pressure campaign, designed to force the Fed to move more quickly in lowering interest rates. The Fed was set up to be insulated from that kind of political meddling, but President Trump has ignored those guardrails. The president is getting pushback, however, from some senators who will vote on Trump's nominee to replace Powell when the chairman's term ends in May. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump says Iran called the U.S. over the weekend to negotiate. He told reporters yesterday Tehran sought to set up a meeting after he threatened military strikes against Iran. Trump has suggested even if he has the meeting, he may still take military action against Iran first. The Trump administration says it will surge more federal agents to Minnesota this week to deal with immigration issues. There are more than 2,000 federal agents already there. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says the Trump administration is not trying to promote safety. It is seeking political retribution.
What's happening is full-on discrimination. It's targeting Somali people in our city, targeting Latino people in Minneapolis, and looking for a problem that, to be clear, we are not seeing on our streets.
He spoke to NPR's Morning Edition. The surge comes after an ICE agent shot and killed a Minneapolis woman last week. In Alaska, Democrat Mary Peltola, the first Alaska Native person elected to Congress, says she is running for the U.S. Senate. Peltola is challenging Republican incumbent Senator Dan Sullivan. Alaska Public Media's Liz Ruskin reports.
With Peltola, national Democrats believe Alaska becomes one of their best hopes to flip a seat. In a campaign launch video, Peltola stressed her salmon-centered family life on Alaska's Kuskokwim River and repeated her previous campaign slogan, Fish, Family, Freedom.
Systemic change is the only way to bring down grocery costs, save our fisheries, lower energy prices, and build new housing Alaskans can afford.
Sullivan is campaigning with President Trump's endorsement. Alaska's other senator, moderate Republican Lisa Murkowski, is a frequent Trump critic. She's endorsed Peltola in the past, but says she's endorsing Sullivan now to keep the Senate's Republican majority. For NPR News, I'm Liz Ruskin.
You're listening to NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, celebrating 100 years of giving for good. More at mott.org/100. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. New this morning, authorities say 2 people have been found shot to death in a home in the Katy area. The Harris County Sheriff's Office says that they responded to the property just east of Mason Road and south of Clay Road. The investigation is ongoing. No additional details have been released just yet, but there is a heavy law enforcement presence in the area. 2 people are dead after separate shootings involving HPD officers this weekend. The first incident took place early yesterday morning on Tidwell Road in northeast Houston. Authorities say officers were attempting to arrest a man during a traffic stop when he became combative, resulting in one officer shooting the man. Yesterday afternoon, another officer-involved shooting took place on Wayne Street in northeast Houston. HPD Assistant Chief James Skelton says officers were responding to a call of a suspicious man with a gun.
As the officers were continuing to give him verbal commands to drop his weapon, the suspect raised his weapon, and our officers, unfortunately, had to discharge their weapon.
Both shootings remain under investigation. Authorities are reminding parents about the dangers of the internet after a man was arrested for allegedly attempting to meet up with a teenage girl for sex. Toby Woods was taken into custody without incident, according to Baytown police. They say Woods was communicating with who he thought was a 16-year-old girl. KHOU reports that Woods is a sex offender stemming from a previous incident. Baytown police are reminding parents to have open conversations about online safety with their kids, in addition to monitoring their social media. Any suspicious activity should be reported to the authorities. An American man won the Chevron Houston Marathon for the first time in over 20 years. Zuhair Talbi beat the time he set back in 2024 when he was not an American citizen. He is now. Talbi beat his own course record yesterday, finishing in just over 2 hours. He called it a special moment, carrying the American flag around his neck at the end of the race. The second-place finisher concluded their race over 30 seconds after Talbi. Sports tonight, the Texans start their playoff run in the NFL playoffs after an entertaining wild-card weekend of pro football. Pittsburgh won their division, so the game will be in Pittsburgh tonight. It starts at 7:15, and you'll get a preview here on Houston Matters. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, we begin a week-long series exploring a variety of issues and how they may play out in Greater Houston in 2026. Also, we welcome your gardening questions for Meg Tapp from the Garden Club of Houston. You can send those now to talk@houstonmatters.org. And as you just heard in our newscast, we will, in fact, preview tonight's AFC wildcard matchup between your Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But first, author and essayist Salman Rushdie will be in Houston tonight at 7:30 to read from his latest story collection called The 11th Hour. His appearance is part of Houston literary nonprofit Imprint's Margaret Root Brown reading series. But that's about all I can tell you about it. You see, only ticket buyers and season subscribers know where it will be. That's for security reasons. Rushdie has for decades experienced threats and actual violence over his writing. It all dates back to 1989 when Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini formally called for Muslims worldwide to kill Rushdie over what Khomeini and other radicals perceived as blasphemy in Rushdie's novel The Satanic Verses. Primarily, they were upset over his use in the story of a character that served as a stand-in for the Prophet Muhammad. Ever since, Rushdie has spoken out on free speech, even in the face of ongoing threats, which culminated in a 2022 attack at the Chautauqua Institution in New York. A man rushed the stage and stabbed Rushdie repeatedly in his stomach, his neck, eye, and elsewhere, leaving him gravely wounded. Rushdie has since recovered but lost sight in one of his eyes and the use of one hand. And yet he still speaks out. He still makes public appearances, and he still writes. The 11th Hour is his return to fiction after he wrote a memoir about the attack, which was called Knife: Meditations After an Attempted Murder. We recorded my conversation with Rushdie on Friday. Salman Rushdie, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you.
First things first, Happy New Year to you. I hope, in light of the last few years, that every New Year is these days going forward a happy one for you. Is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's nice to be having some But yes, it's a Happy New Year to you too.
How much traveling, how many appearances like the one you'll make in Houston have you been doing lately? Now, 3.5 years since Chautauqua and the start of your road to physical recovery there.
No, well, with this new book, The 11th Hour, coming out, I haven't done a gigantic book tour, but I've done some stuff. I mean, we're getting better at knowing how to do these things in a way that's safe for everybody.
Yeah, you're coming to Houston, and as I'm mentioning, we don't know where your appearance will be, but the folks that are attending it they know. And is that, I assume, among the steps that you take as you make appearances around the country and around the world?
I didn't actually know that was the case.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean in many places that I've done advertised events that they've gone fine.
Okay. I should also point out you are not a stranger to Houston, and in fact, I was recently reminded that you spent more time here than you ever intended back in 2001. What do you recall about the days of and following September 11th, 2001, when you were here in Houston, stranded like so many of us were?
Yeah, well, it was, of course, a terrible moment. I had just done an event with Imprint, the same people that were hosting me on this occasion. I'd done an event for, I can't even remember which book. I think it was Fury. On the night of September the 10th, and I was supposed to be leaving on the next leg of the book tour, I think to Minneapolis on the next morning. And I had agreed to do a radio interview, a phone-in from my hotel room before I went to the airport. And the reporter called me up in my hotel room early and said, look, because of what's happening in New York, we can't do the interview. And I had, I don't have the habit of switching on the TV the moment I wake up. So I said, what's happening in New York? And he said, turn on your goddamn television. And I turned it on just like so many people, just in time to see the second plane. And yeah, then I was, because of the ground stop, I was stranded in Houston for a couple of days. And actually the Imprint folks, Rich Levy and Imprint, really went to some trouble to make sure I'd be okay. They found me somewhere to stay, and they kind of, I was going to say took care of me, but I think maybe we looked after each other at that terrible moment.
Do you have any recollection of how you spent those couple of days?
Well, I can remember one thing. I mean, the place they found me to stay, another writer's home that was in the museum district, and it was very close to the Rothko Chapel. And I don't, I'm not the most holy person in the world, but on that particular occasion, I thought that's where I wanted to go. And I went to the Rothko Chapel, and there weren't many people there. There were just a few people sitting there. Nobody talked to anybody. But we just sat there and reflected, on what had happened. Yeah, I mean, it was, I was actually very touched by the extent to which folks in Houston took trouble to make sure I was okay and take me out to dinner and kind of, wait for the planes to start flying.
Do you think that experience has shaped either, not just your perceptions of Houston, but maybe the way you think of your relationship with the rest of America?
Well, it made me, I had the feeling that my home was being attacked. It made me understand that America was home. I hadn't been living. It was relatively recently. It was like 2 years after I moved to New York. I have to say, on the other hand, about Houston, I'm a Yankees fan.
Uh-oh. we got trouble now.
And Yankees, Astros, it's not the best relationship in the world.
Nah, we'll find a way to muddle through, though. Your new collection, The 11th Hour, this weaves 5 interconnected stories. They examine a variety of issues and ideas, but among them, identity and memory, aging and mortality. Are these things that you contemplate more and more every year?
Well, I mean, I think, I'm getting up there. I'll be 79 this year. And if you're at that stage in your life, you do think about things like that more often. But what I was anxious to do was to be kind of playful with it, not to write books about, oh my God, we're all going to die,
right?
Because we all know that. That's not news. I wanted to have some fun with it. So, for example, it was in the book is the first ghost story I ever wrote. And that was enormously enjoyable to write, I have to say. I was very fond of my ghost.
I guess I got to ask, do you believe in ghosts?
Never seen one. But in fiction, you can make things real which don't have to be real in everyday life.
I imagine that sense of playfulness might be one example, but are there some other ways that you think maybe you think about aging and mortality and it all differently than you might have 30 or 40 years ago?
Well, yeah, because the end is closer, and also because of what happened almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago in Chautauqua, I had a pretty good look at the ending. And so, yeah, it feels more intimate now, if you like, But also, I think one of the things that happened in the book is it made me look backwards over not just my life as a person, but my life as a writer. And these stories revisit worlds that I've spent my life writing about. I mean, really, three worlds. I mean, India, England, and America. And I've lived for really very extended periods of time in all of those, and have thought and written about them over half a century now. My first book was published in 1975, so it's like 51 years ago. And so it's a long time that I've been thinking about these places and watching them change, and sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But being deeply engaged with them. And so these stories are a way of revisiting all those worlds.
How do you think those three worlds, India, England, the United States, how are they similar and how are they different as you contemplate where they are in 2026?
Well, I'm very much a big city guy. I mean, I've spent most of my life in big cities, three big cities, Bombay, as it used to be, Mumbai now, London and New York. And one of the things about the mentality of the big city is that it's much the same everywhere in the world. It's very diverse. It's very crowded. It's very noisy. The same kinds of plurality. You meet people of all kinds everywhere and bumping into each other, speaking different languages, and etc. And the nature of the big city is that kind of plural reality. And I think the kind of books I've written have very much grown out of that sense. And that I think that they're all those cities are still like that. I mean, clearly, there's been a certain amount of prejudice about diversity and migration and so on these days, but I've always in my work tried to celebrate it. I've tried to say that what we gain from it is much greater than what problems it might bring.
Ahead of our chat, I asked Houstonians on the old socials if they had any questions for you. I thought maybe we could go through a few of them.
Oh, sure, yes.
All right. John asks what he calls the obvious question. He wants to know, do you feel your life is still in danger?
Oh, no, it was a case of kind of bad luck, really, because I just encountered one crazy kid, in a situation where there was kind of no security protection at all. I mean, if there had been one person stationed by the steps up to the stage, nothing would have happened. So it was a kind of perfect storm. And I don't spend my days worrying about it too much. I mean, I'm serious about making sure it never happens again. Say that.
I think you may have just answered Maggie's question. She wonders if you're scared to do public events after the stabbing.
No, it took me a bit of time to get back to doing them. I'll admit that. It took a little bit of a deep breath to say, okay, I'm going to start doing this again. But as I say, I've talked to professionals. I mean, we've got very good at doing them in a way that's safe, not only for me, but for everyone there.
You wrote a memoir about the attack and your recovery. Sophie asks if it's harder to write your memoirs than it is to write fiction.
Well, it was hard to write that one because the subject obviously was, to put it mildly, painful.
Wow.
But I felt that I had to write it because, it was very big in my head. It was very, very difficult to think about writing anything else. And I understood quite early on after the attack that the only way of getting past it was to go through it, so to speak, to kind of deal with it. And writing the book was important for me in that way. It was a way of taking charge of what had happened and getting past it, I mean, the fact that I was able to complete a book of stories just over a year after writing the memoir shows that actually what I felt was that when I finished the book, it was like the floodgates opened in my head and the fiction came back. And I was very pleased to see that it did.
Varsha wants to know, is there a book you wish you had written, but you haven't? And I'll tack onto that, at least not yet.
Oh, War and Peace. Madame Bovary. There's a lot of books I wish I'd written. I mean, what I think of writing is that it's my way of responding to the moment in the world that I'm living through. And so the books change and grow and emerge out of those experiences. So there isn't like a particular story that I feel, oh, I wish I'd told that. But I'm always trying to find the next story, and so far so good. They keep. This is the 11th Hour is my 23rd book, so it's 23 books in 50 years. It's enough, I think.
It's a pretty good pace, I'd say. Meredith says she'd love to know if there's anything you believe Americans are doing wrong when we fight censorship, and if so, what are your suggestions for fixing it?
Well, you just have to fight harder. It's a very strange moment in that area of American life that because one of the reasons why people like me respect this country is the
sorry about that, man. Yeah, I rearranged it to 9:30.
The guarantee of free expression that it contains, and in a country in which that's such an important thing, to see books being banned and removed from libraries and children being told that they can't read certain things. And
I said, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I switched my appointment to 9:30 to try to fit this in. But
put it this way, if you're a parent and there's a book you don't want your child to read, that's your right, I guess. But it's not your right to tell other people's children what they can read and not read. And there's too much of that going on. PEN America, which is the writers' organization that I've been involved with for a long time, had a survey recently, a couple of months ago, in which they said that there's more than 10,000 book bans active in the United States at the moment. And that's horrifying. And these are not just any old books, these are some of the best books ever written. This is, To Kill a Mockingbird, or Beloved, or Huckleberry Finn. Books that really all of us would do well and benefit from reading. So they're being challenged. The thing is, the answer to the question really is that you fight hard. And there are organizations and entities that are fighting back against the book bans with a fair amount of success. The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, has been fighting bans. PEN America, in collaboration with universities and bookstores and publishers, have been fighting back against the book bans with a fair amount of success. But, the battle goes on.
As a New Yorker, this is a good question for you. Farha asks, what do you think of New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani?
Well, he's hardly got behind the desk yet. This is like his first week. I mean, I think he fought a very attractive campaign, and he energized the electorate in a way that it hasn't been for a long time. In mayoral elections in New York City, the vote turnout is usually not very high. And this time it was a very high turnout, and particularly high amongst younger voters, and that's great to see. So he totally earned it. And now we have to see what he does with it. At the beginning, the first signs are pretty good. I mean, his agreement with Governor Hochul about making childcare cheaper or free. I mean, that was a big part of his campaign, and he's made a very good start. So I think, he deserves his shot. And I think a lot of people are hoping that he does well.
You made an effort to be playful in writing the 11th Hour. Let me return the favor with his final question from Brad, who wants to know how Larry David convinced you to guest star on Curb Your Enthusiasm and satirize how a fatwa makes you a chick magnet.
Well, we didn't know each other really. We'd very briefly met somewhere, and he got in touch, and I'd kind of pitched it at me. And of course, the funny thing is that there's no script to read because the show is more or less completely improvised. So he described it to me, and at first I thought I didn't know how funny that was, and then I changed my mind, and I thought, if we've reached a point where we can have fun with it and laugh at it, then that's a kind of victory. And so I said I'd do it. I mean, I was quite scared because those guys on Curb, they're geniuses of improv. And I didn't want to be the only person on Curb who wasn't any good. But I hope I got away with it.
I would say you did. Salman Rushdie, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
Salman Rushdie speaks tonight at 7:30 and reads from his latest story collection. It's called The 11th Hour. His appearance is part of Houston literary nonprofit In Print's Margaret Root Brown reading series. Up next, we begin a new series with a look ahead to the rest of 2026 and immigration across Greater Houston. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media Newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Consulting Solutions, specializing in mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, and valuations for exit planning. Details at sunnypro.com or follow @sunnypro LLC.
From Baylor College of Medicine, with 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, after a double feature of Antiques Roadshow at 7, Voces presents American Sons at 9. Follow a group of Marines as they navigate the devastating loss of their comrade. Tonight on TV8.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. This week, we're looking ahead to what the next 12 months are likely to bring when it comes to the most pressing, compelling, and impactful issues Houstonians will face. Immigration has certainly topped that list over the last year and is already high on Houstonians' minds again in early 2026 as the Trump administration ramps up what it's calling the largest immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. Houston may well be at the epicenter. In a city where 1 in 4 residents is foreign-born, it's an issue that one way or another touches everyone here. To discuss what the year ahead in immigration holds for Greater Houston, we are joined first by Julián Aguilar, immigration reporter with Houston Chronicle. Julián, good morning. How would you characterize the state of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown over the last year and where it leaves us here in early 2026? Okay, it looks like Julián can't hear us. I guess we'll see if we can get that resolved here in the next few seconds. He cannot hear us, so we'll see if we can. Julián, can you hear me now? No.
I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so go ahead. Julián, how would you characterize the state of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown over the last year and where it leaves us here in early 2026?
Well, that's a pretty big question. So just as a snapshot, so part of our coverage just this last week was a DACA recipient that has been in removal proceedings because of his social media posts, a protest on Friday against the killing of a U.S. citizen at a protest in Minneapolis. And then, speaking with attorneys about what Venezuelan asylum seekers in Houston are going to do after the U.S. went in and removed Nicolas Maduro. And I say that as just like a snapshot of an average week of coverage now, with everything else that's still going on. So, it's going to be huge. I think I don't think the president's going to take his foot off the gas. I don't think a lot of the concerns about, heavy-handedness with ICE agents or against protesters is going to sway the Department of Homeland Security. We saw Governor Abbott after the protests in Austin, where there were some folks arrested. I think he posted something that says, Texas is not Minneapolis, so it goes to speak to the state enforcement as well. So I think at both levels, we're going to see more enforcement. We're going to see, more of what people say are heavy-handed tactics by ICE and other immigration officers, and I don't think that's going to stop. There was a study by the Dallas Fed a couple months ago that said, Texas is probably likely going to feel the repercussions of this loss of labor, whether it's because undocumented folks are being deported or whether it's because folks that are here legitimately with a work permit are scared to go to work. And I think that's probably going to, tell that story is going to be told probably within the next few months once, we get some key statistics from 2025 and, and certain industries, definitely the construction industry and the service industry, and see how those are faring as well. We also have to worry about public schools. Enrollment numbers for HISD, just dropped late last week. The Chronicle has a story about that, and enrollment is down. So, how much of that is tied to folks that are, leaving on their own accord because their parents got deported, or how much of that is just folks scared to go to school because of this enforcement action? So, it's going to touch, I think, every facet the way it has the last 9-10 months, but I think it's not going to stop in 2026.
What other stories, angles, or lingering questions do you hope to dig into this year surrounding immigration in Greater Houston beyond what you just described?
Sure. I think there's still a lot of questions about what local law enforcement is supposed to do. I'm sure you all have been following, Mayor Whitmire's kind of what people are saying is back and forth saying we're not cooperating with ICE, and then saying we are cooperating with ICE, we have to. So what we're working on is, just figuring out what every municipality and every law enforcement agency, exactly what they do when they come across somebody that might have an administrative warrant for removal that's not a criminal warrant. You still have a lot of law enforcement officers saying it's not our job to enforce immigration. But what do they do in an instance where they come up with somebody that has a deportation order, even though that's a civil offense with no criminal, background or history attached to it? And I think that's going to play in a lot to see how many deportations are conducted this year under the Trump administration and, at the state and local levels as well.
Julián Aguilar is an immigration reporter with the Houston Chronicle. Julián, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
And joining us now is Stephen Wu. He's the executive director of the local immigrant rights advocacy and service organization, Woori Juntos. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
How has what Julián describes affected the people that you serve?
Yeah, I for us in the past over a year now, we've had countless community members across the county really just not understanding how they can live their lives at this moment. When you are unsure if you can go to work, if you're unsure if you can send your kids to school, if you're unsure that you can even walk down the street without being kidnapped, it brings unprecedented fear into their households. And so these are the stories that we have had to navigate every single day since January 20 last year. And sadly, there have been instances where folks have been detained and deported, and others who just refuse to leave their houses because it is too dangerous for them. And for us, beyond the economic ramifications of what this means for the city of Houston or Harris County, it is really this sense of dignity that has been taken away from individuals who, because of the coverage of this issue with local, state, or national news outlets, they see and hear about this demonization of immigrants, this continuous criminalization of our people, and they absorb that. They hear that every single day, and they believe, not believe, but they're hearing that they are lesser. And so, for them, we want to make sure that we are providing a space that they are still in a place where they feel valued that they are individuals that belong here, that have ties here, that are part of our fabric any more than anyone else who exists or lives in this city or state. And so for us, we've been doing a lot of work with Know Your Rights, having to do deportation defense campaigns, building these protective structures so that folks understand what they can do in case they do interact with law enforcement, and at the same time still organize to push for policies that make our city a better place, including what Julian just mentioned about the local level collaboration between HPD and ICE. This is something that us and our partners have been working on for the past few months, and for us, we do not believe that HPD needs to be doing this, and is something that can be stopped, that doesn't violate any state or federal laws.
I imagine among the challenges is trying to figure out where the line is, where fear matches reality. You know what I mean? In terms of what actually is happening on the ground across Greater Houston, and it does what these concerns are of immigrants across Greater Houston from a variety of backgrounds. Does it match what is actually going on? Sometimes I imagine it does, and other times maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, so for us, we have partnerships with rapid response individuals who go out, and we have seen obviously a huge uptick of ICE activity. And I know there was recently this debate with the New York Times reporting of the number of on the ground and/or jail interactions with immigration enforcement, and the mayor said that those numbers are inflated, quote unquote, with the city of Houston versus the surrounding neighborhoods. But for us, we have seen huge numbers of incidents in different pockets from like Southwest Houston, Aldine, Pasadena, and et cetera. And so that is real. The enforcement activities within the greater Houston area is very much real. The issue that we are seeing is that we're not getting the same coverage as other cities across the country. Part of it is because the city is huge. It's very large, it's very sprawling. It's very difficult for people to get to a certain place in just in time. The other is just, folks showing out. For us, we're trying to make sure that, individuals who want to protect their neighbors also know their rights in defending their neighbors and their friends. And, we would love to see, similar kind of responses where individuals can come out and alert when ICE is in the neighborhoods, just so that they know what their rights are in case they come knocking on their door.
What do you anticipate we'll be talking about, experiencing, or reacting to related to immigration for the rest of this year? Will it be much what we saw last year, or you think things may shift a little?
Yeah, for us, we believe that things from the federal agents would get worse before they get better. If what has happened in Minneapolis is any indication, this administration is not going to let go. They're going to continue ramping up their efforts. At the same time, Texas and the city of Houston or Harris County have already provided more support really to this effort. This year, the county now has to, because of state law, go into a 287G agreement, with ICE. And this is something that we stopped back in 2018. And so now there's going to be more interactions on that front. We also, like I said before, the HPD collaboration with ICE is going to, still be an ongoing issue that we're having. So for how it affects the individuals on the ground, they've already lived a whole year, 365 days of fear of losing income, of not going to school, of not being in the community that they love and appreciate being a part of. And so they are running low on, funds to survive. They're running low on hope to continue. And so it's really for us a call to action to anyone who's listening right now is, be there for your neighbors. Talk with them if you know that they're possibly impacted, and see what you can do to help, whether it's just some cash to survive the next day, or transportation, join a rapid response network. These are the things that we are trying to do so that we still have hope to continue surviving and fighting for a better Houston.
Stephen Wu is the executive director of Woori Juntos. Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And just ahead, our monthly conversation about gardening. We welcome your questions for Meg Tapp from the Garden Club of Houston at talk@houstonmatters.org or 713-440-8870 as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Good Reason Houston with the 2025 Houston Public Education Snapshot, tracking how Houston's schools are preparing students today for a living wage tomorrow. Learn more at goodreasonhouston.org.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is made possible in part by Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, and with gifts from listeners like you.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. On the second Monday of every month, we set aside time on this program to field your questions about whatever is or is not growing in your yard for Meg Tapp from the Garden Club of Houston. You can call or text your gardening questions now to 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also post your question in the chat on our live video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Meg, good morning.
Good morning to you.
As we await questions, it is a new year, and some Houstonians may have resolved to dedicate part of this year to establishing a brand new garden. Maybe they're going to garden for the first time, or maybe some longtime gardeners are thinking, maybe it's time to rethink what I'm trying to grow.
That would make me very happy to think that that's people's New Year's resolution.
Well, I'm sure there are a few. What would you advise in terms of maybe some baby steps for somebody who wants to just get started?
So, ferns are a very super easy. Well, the easiest thing you could do if you are not a gardener and you just thought, you know what, I am gonna give it a whirl because they are good for your indoor air and all that kind of stuff. If you want to start small. Whatever they grow in the grocery store will grow in your house. So it's those are old tried and true plants.
Would you say start inside versus planting outside?
Like the babyest step ever would be, because that would cover the most amount of people that, since we don't know individual plans, but everyone has an inside, not everyone has an outside.
True.
So, look how profound.
Well, technically, if we want to get profound, not everybody has an inside either. Set that aside.
Way to bring me down.
Well,
I was all excited about people's just pointing the obvious.
Yeah.
If anything that grows in the grocery store that you can buy would grow in your house because those are just super tried and true. But if you want to try that and see how it goes, that's a super baby step way to get in there. But honestly, ferns are a great starter plant for inside. So ferns there's a bazillion kinds of ferns. The ferns with the thicker leaves are the better ones for actually all of us because they are more self-reliant. So the ones that have really wispy fronds and fern and leaves, they don't hold very much water in their leaves, but the ones that are thicker, the reason they're thick is they're full of water and they're full of cells that hold water. So they are more forgiving because they don't have to be, you don't want to get into the thing of, I always think it's like the old Clue thing, like in the conservatory, like you don't have to be like going around with your, like the mister and your misting all your plants that are inside. So if you can get the thicker leaved ones, that's a great place to start. And oddly enough, orchids, everyone thinks they're very exotic, obviously, but they are relatively easy to grow. And especially with Valentine's kind of coming up, you could, if you get or give orchid, you can make it live forever and have it rebloom. It's easier than you would think. So they look fabulous when you buy them, and I can't say that you could replicate that exact thing, but after the orchid blooms, so they stay for maybe, it could be a month that you get those beautiful blooms, you cut it down, you cut that one stalk all the way down to the leaves, take it out of its little plastic. It's in this very confined plastic thing. When you get it, you can't really see it because it's in another disguised kind of pretty pot. Mm-hmm. But it's not good. No one. It would be like you being in Saran wrap. Not good.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay for the little bit of time. So once it finishes blooming and you cut it all the way back, you take it out of that plastic thing, put it in a regular pot, and then it can live outside for anytime it's above like 43 degrees. So that's most of our year. And it will rebloom. It'll grow, that one stalk will come, well, it'll be a little bit next to it, but a stalk will start rising, and then you will get the little buds and you'll get the flowers just like you did before. The only thing with orchids is they have to be, in real life, orchids grow on a tree. So they don't actually need to be planted and don't prefer to be planted in the dirt. And that's why that plastic thing is so bad for them. But you can buy what's called orchid mix, and it's kind of chunky bark. But all you have to do is just put it in a pot and put some of that orchid mix in it. And like I said, you don't pot it in dirt. But you just have to make sure you water it a bunch, because the whole point of that kind of barky stuff is that since they do grow in trees, they wouldn't hold on to water. They would just get wet with rain. So if you water it, then you just want it all to flow through. And if you are in the mood, for any time you're going to put anything in a pot, if you will get I brought one actually. If you would get one of those old fluted coffee filters and just stick it in the bottom, because what happens is you put the soil or you put whatever in and it just falls through that drain hole. But if you put the coffee filter in, it will stay there until it just decomposes naturally, but it will hold onto the soil from falling through. So that's just pro tip.
All right. You brought up orchids, and we have a question on our YouTube channel. Are orchids pet safe?
That I know of. I've never even heard of that. You know what? I've never had that be a concern.
Yeah, I guess what they're asking is if a dog or a cat eats an orchid, is that a problem?
Yeah, I've never heard it be a problem.
Okay.
I mean, like poinsettias, everyone knows kind of that.
Yeah.
There is one place you could go that's a great resource is you can go to PETA, and they actually do have a list of plants that are not pet friendly. And then actually, Missouri Botanical Garden has a great website. It's called MoBot, M-O for Missouri, and bot is short for Botanical Garden, but mobot.org. And then it's under the plant finder, and you just type it in the little plant finder box, and it'll tell you where it grows, how it grows, but then it will say if it's invasive and if it's what toxicity it has.
Another question on our YouTube channel: how can I avoid flies with an indoor plant?
Maybe gnats. Like, I don't know about flies. Flies are the big kind of picnicky things.
Yeah.
But like the little gnats.
But any kind of bugs, if that's a concern somebody has, I don't like to keep plants in the house because I'm afraid I'll get bugs.
Did you write this question yourself?
I did not.
Okay, just checking. You can dunk them. So you can take your plant that is, they do sometimes get those little gnats, and that's that there's too much water, too much moisture, so it sounds counterintuitive to go dunk it, but you can basically go drown it. You can fill your sink or a little mop bucket with a little bit of soapy water, and when I say soapy water, it could literally be hand soap or Dawn, just dish soap, just a tiny bit, and then dunk it for just like a minute, and that will, first of all, no bugs like soap. And the dunking, having it be submerged will cause them to not stay on the plant, and then dry it off and then put it back wherever you had it. But I would be careful with the amount of water that you're giving it in general. It shouldn't be, when you touch the soil with your finger, it should not be like super wet.
Tal asks, when should I prune plants in the garden? In the last month, I've seen a lot of new shoots and flowering plants. The garden seems completely confused this year.
They've been around longer than we have. That's the funny thing. So, yes, they do get confused. Not confused. They have false starts, is what I would say. So, you get punished, like when we have that weird 11-degree situation. So all plants got punished, as did we. But in general, what happens is the plant gets a signal, and the signal is the amount of light it gets, and that does not change. Like, it knows that the days are short and all that kind of stuff. So it's saying, okay, it's not ready, and then it's warmer than usual, but it's probably not normal. I mean, probably not warmer than usual, because there is no usual. So if it's a perennial plant and it's been there for 10 years, it's already done that once, for sure, and it's lived through it. So leave it alone, because the thing you don't want to do is cut something. When you cut anything, whether it's your skin or a plant, it sends out, I don't know if it's hormones or whatever it is, that tells it, oh, I need to heal. I need to fix this. So if you prune something, what you've done is you've cut it off, and then the plant's like, oh, shoot, I'm missing a bunch of me, so let me start repairing that by growing new me. And so it will start growing, but you don't want that to happen because you'll have brand new baby foliage. And then if we get a really cold snap, if we get an 11 degree, nothing you can do about that. But you still don't want it to go to like 28, and then you've just punished that plant. So just leave everybody alone, let them do their thing, and then toward mid-February, which is just a month away, then you can start pruning things. But it really depends on the plant and when it's going to bloom. For like azaleas, for example, if you prune them now, all their buds are preloaded from the fall. So they've spent the entire winter getting ready. They've already assigned how many blooms they're going to have. And so in March when they come out. But if you prune them now, you just cut that all off. So you would do a little bit of research. It depends. If things are spring blooming, you don't do that now at all. You do it after they bloom. But if it's just a tree, you can just, in mid-February is just fine if you need to just shape it up.
So just like Laramie Tunsil of the Texans last year, he's no longer on the team, but last year, too many false starts. That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's the main problem.
Got it. If we didn't get to your question or you think of one later today or in the coming days and weeks, you can email it to us at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can text us anytime at 713-440-8870, and we'll try to address it next time with Meg Tapp from the Garden Club of Houston. Meg, thank you very much.
Thank you kindly.
Still to come, we preview tonight's Texans-Steelers AFC wildcard playoff matchup, the players, the coaches, the schemes, and the cold. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
Inch by inch. It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Participating restaurants across the island feature prefix lunch, brunch, and dinner options for a range of dining preferences. January 12th through 30th. More at visitgalveston.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Clarion at Brazosport College, presenting the Westerly's Brass Quartet, performing in concert on Friday, January 16th. More information at brazosport.edu/Clarion.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Central Market, starting the new year with supplements, hormonal support, protein products, and more for refreshing wellness routines. CentralMarket.com.
The Texans take on the Steelers in cold Pittsburgh tonight at 7:15 in their AFC wildcard playoff game. Let's talk through step by step how the two football teams match up with Houston Press writer and Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke. Hi, Jeff. Jeff, let's start with the Texans' greatest strength, the team defense. How do the players expect to start tonight, those that are expected to start, how do they match up?
Well, defensively, this is the best team in football. I mean, they were the best team in terms of yards given up. They were really the best team in terms of points, except for that last game when they rested a bunch of guys, and so they gave up a bunch of points. But this is an incredibly good Texans defense. And, you know, the truth is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not a great offense. They do get DK Metcalf back, which is very helpful for them. Presents them with another option to throw to. He had been out injured. They have a couple of running backs that sort of running back by committee. But this is a Texans defense that I think they're going to have a hard time scoring against. And listen, when the Texans score 20 points, they don't lose. They held their opponents to 16 points a game outside of that last game of the season. And I don't expect that to be much different. Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old. He's still got an arm. You don't want to allow him to stand back in the pocket and throw the ball. But he holds the ball less than any quarterback in the NFL, just under 2.5 seconds. So he's going to try and get rid of it quickly. The key for them is don't surrender any big plays as best as possible. Try to get a turnover, try to put some pressure on Aaron Rodgers.
So some pressure, but maybe not a lot of blitzing. Is that a reasonable
Well, the
expectation?
Texans don't really blitz. I mean, they don't really have to. They have two of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Danielle Hunter and And when they're getting to the quarterback, it's usually on a 4-man front. So they don't really have to blitz, which makes them so dangerous because they also have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. And so the key for them is just stop the run, get some pressure on Aaron Rodgers, even if you just have to force him to unload it to to his primary receiver instead of being able to, look at other options. That's totally fine. You don't need to get him on the ground constantly in order for them to have success against this team.
You mentioned Danielle Hunter. I imagine he and Will Anderson Jr. are likely to be the biggest names, the ones that we would point to and say they're going to make the difference in this game potentially, or would you point to somebody else?
Well, I think they're going to be, if they don't get any sacks, they might end up as unsung heroes. I think the guys really to watch are going to be the guys on the back end. Derek Stingley Jr., Kamari Lassiter, who's actually back from a mild injury. These are guys who really do have the ability to change games because they can turn teams over. And typically the team that wins a turnover battle in playoff games is the team that wins the game. And so I think I'd be watching specifically for those two guys, particularly when they only really have one really good downfield receiver in Metcalf. I think it's going to be a lot of short game for the Steelers, and I think that plays into the Texans' hands.
Meantime, the Texans' offense faces a stingy Steelers defense. Where are the matchups favorable and unfavorable there?
I think it's a pretty dead even matchup here. The key for the Texans' offense really is don't turn the ball over. Don't make mistakes. Don't be overly aggressive if you can't be. Try to get the ball downfield when the opportunities present themselves. Run the football. Just take care of the ball. Don't make dumb penalties. The key for them is just they need to get into the end zone a couple of times. Probably, I think they can do that. They have such a talented wide receiving core, and then of course Dalton Schultz is a really remarkable tight end for them. C.J. Stroud is not a guy that makes a ton of mistakes, so I don't expect him to do that here either. The key really will be, can the offensive line open some holes for the running game, give some of those guys a chance to get into the secondary? Can they block long enough to give C.J. Stroud some time to throw? And the biggest thing is watch wherever T.J. Watt is on the field. Make sure he does not come anywhere near your quarterback.
Anything notable about the coaching matchup here?
It's a really interesting one because when you look at the fact that, their coach, despite Mike Tomlin, who's been there forever, has been under a lot of pressure this year. I think fans in Pittsburgh are getting a little bit restless. They haven't won in the postseason. They brought in Aaron Rodgers. They were 6-6 at one point this year, earlier in the season when they played a bunch of good teams. And then on the other side, you've got D'Amico Ryans, who's a pretty young coach, only his third year, has struggled a bit this year. I think more than fans would have liked and expected. So it's an interesting matchup, experience versus, two African-American quarterbacks, really historic moment for them too. Plus, by the way, little symmetry here in the fact that the Oilers played the Steelers twice in the postseason in the AFC Championship game back in the late 70s during the Love You Blue era. So no love lost, even though they're not in the same division like they used to be.
As you said, two African-American coaches. Also, I guess the X factor going into all of this we thought was going to be the weather. It's going to be cold, but that's kind of it, right? Not as windy as initially anticipated.
Yeah. In fact, the wind should die down. It won't be like, I think it was Philly where it was just blowing all over the place, swirling around in the field, making everything crazy. It shouldn't be like that. Wind should be pretty calm tonight. It's going to be cold, but players are used to that. We always worry about like warm weather teams, but a lot of the players that play on these warm weather teams are from cold climates. They played in these places in college. They played in these places throughout their careers. So it's not that big of a deal. I think as long as there's not any inclement weather, I think it shouldn't really impact that much how they play the game.
Jeff Balke writes for the Houston Press. He co-hosts the Believe in Astros podcast and joins us most Mondays to talk over developments in sports. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
And that's it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, we continue our Houston 2026 series. We'll look ahead at the year in Greater Houston in energy and the environment. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for that and other Houston Matters.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. With 125 years